again. I'm waiting for a response.
Okay. I'll talk to my person that there. I'll get things going. So we'll just we'll pick it up.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll figure out what's going on.
Yeah, they're asking for bank statements now, so I'll write up some of that here sometime soon.
How about they pay me first? Although they gave me a little frame of the cover. So thanks. Still gotta get a picture. Is it 5'2"? Before we get going, is there anything I can answer? Any questions? Anything from the first week? I've got a lot of stuff I'll be talking about, but anything I can hit at so we're not just kind of wasting time right now? Yeah.
The chapter 1 quiz.
Yeah.
I did it, and then I checked my grade, and it said 9 out of 10. But you know how you could look at the details after it closes. I checked the details, and I went through, and all of them were correct. But it said 9 out of 10. So I was just wondering.
First I've heard of this. So yeah, I'll so that's okay. I'll double check all of that. And your name is I remember. Yeah, I know. I memorized everyone's name, or almost everyone's name. OnCourse has everyone's photo. I normally memorize like 70 names in a class, so this is really easy. It just freaks people out when I know their name. And trust me, I'm not Facebook stalking or anything. So yeah, but that's textbook stuff, but
yeah.
we'll get it taken care of. I mean, I'm not here to screw people over. Is it same deal?
No.
Cool.
I was just gonna ask if are we gonna go over like where the questions where it gave like the examples and to apply it, can we go over like a few different examples?
Sure. Yeah, like go ahead. Go ahead.
Like where it was talking about the example of in like the pornography business and like an STD like travels throughout it as a question and like which thing it applied to.
Yeah.
Can we go over some examples?
Yeah.
Okay.
So going through the different diffusion types?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We can definitely do that. And we will touch on that, actually. Where's my mouse? Let's see. And when we get to this page, remind me, because that's a relevant question to something I'm going to talk about. And I'll just highlight that right there. So when we get to that, I'll hopefully remember. All right. But yeah, we can go through all kinds of, and this will come back up in the health geography chapter. So really, when we look at diseases, how do they transfer from one area to another, from one person to another? That's the blessing about this course, maybe, is the fact that when bad stuff happens, i.e. Ebola, we can use that and apply the concepts to understand Ebola. So obviously Ebola would be one that's contagious diffusion, no doubt about that. I mean, that's why people, you don't go, that's why the nurses were the ones that are coming into contact and the ones getting Ebola, or it's because they're working on patients with Ebola. So that's a great example of contagious diffusion. However, Ebola is also, you could say, a good example of network diffusion. So when people travel via airlines, now wherever that person goes, whatever network they were on, then thus exposes those people to the risk of Ebola. So these diffusion types, they do overlap, and you can have an example like a disease be more than one, but nonetheless we can explain the basic ideas for each of them. Pornographers. So in the 1980s and 1990s, hell, probably still to this day, pornographers were getting STDs left and right. So what was happening? They were all having sex with each other. Great timing. And so they were all having sex with each other, and so thus exposing each other to the STDs. If you were, Bill Gates, obviously not a part of the sex industry, not a pornographer that we know of. I mean, there's probably a tape somewhere, but anyway, then he's not a part of that network, and so thus not going to be exposed to STDs. Other examples of network diffusion, when say someone gets on the green line of a bus and starts sneezing, hacking, blowing whatever all over the place, that's going to then expose people who ride the green line, who get on, who get off, to that type of disease. And so that's another example of network diffusion. But all of these I'm going to come back to when we look at the exam. So let's go ahead. Fire away. All right, so go ahead and I'll do attendance. So we'll just work our way from the bottom to the top. So go ahead, just tell me your name.
Ashlyn DeWard.
Cool. Columbus, yeah. Great. All right.
Chad Ballard.
Chad Ballard. Decatur Township. Cool. So, Marion County, we'll talk a lot about Marion County. For some reason, that rubs people the wrong way. Man, why do I gotta learn about Marion County? Well, guess where the school's located? Guess where most of you are currently residing, or damn near residing? Guess where 2/3 of you will probably have a job when you leave here? Somewhere in central Indiana. So that's why I talk about Indiana. So if you're an international student, then it's great, because it's an opportunity for you to learn about this place that you could find employment. Yeah.
Andrew Herc.
Cool. Cool. Suburbanization, we'll be talking about it, so I'm sure you can relate to it from Fishers.
Josie Roberts.
Josie. Rural Indiana, we'll talk about rural Indiana. You talked about limestone. Limestone is a great example of a certain type of industry. You don't see a lot of it in Indianapolis, but you do see it in rural areas. We'll talk about that, how that can be a blessing and a curse, having limestone dominate your industry in your local area. Cool.
Austin Gates.
Cool. So Marion County as well, we'll talk about that for sure. Yeah.
Julia Yates.
Cool. So Marion County also, so you guys will all understand the land use chapter. I mean, it'll be kind of hard to grasp, but you more than anyone, because you drive these streets, you'll be able to understand these patterns a little bit better than others. There are some chapters you'll like more than others for sure.
Brad Smith.
Brad Smith. Cool. Okay.
Cody Duncan.
All right. Cool. Yeah.
Jack McLaughlin.
Jack. So Irvington. So one of the new things happening is gentrification. You look at Fountain Square, Fletcher Place, Mass Ave, Speedway kind of. All these places are redeveloping. Irvington becoming a hot place to live. Prices going up. There's positives and negatives to that. Great, so it's great that we can all relate to that in some way because we're seeing gentrification, whether it be Indiana Avenue here, where they've got all those restaurants and apartments, all that. 5 years ago, none of that was there. Anyway, cool. Yeah.
Jared Snow.
Jared Snow, cool. Great.
Joel Thompson.
Joel Thompson, right on.
I heard that was also.
Oh, great. So Saudi Arabia? Yeah, so that international perspective, of course, the geography course is going to be absolutely critical. So in discussions, feel free to add anything, because you obviously have a different perspective. That's what's great about hopefully this discussion, this setup in this course is we're interacting, we're talking, we're not just having some guy talk to us for an hour and a half or gal. Cool. All right, so all of you, so far have a bonus point. If we all stick around to the end, we'll all stay on point. Then we'll get 2 points, and all of these bonus points that I'll be adding to your exam scores. So after your exam 1, you'll see at the top the plus score, and that'll be me, tallying, keeping track, tallying all the scores and all of that. Cool. All right. Chapter 1 quiz questions, and so we already have one thing that I'm going to check out and take a look at. But as far as there's 3 different sections. There's the online section, there's this section, and the 3 o'clock. You guys had the highest score, so it was 7.4, highest average score in the first quiz. So I don't know maybe you guys are already sharper than the other tools or whatever. Yeah, get that on camera. So anything I can talk about. The discussion forums, as far as you got one next week, and so just going forward, just make sure that you're proofreading. I know this sounds stupid, but capitalize I, place names, like so for example, Podunk or Morrisville, capitalize those. So place names you capitalize. Of course, just take the extra time to go back and just make sure everything is clean. Spell check's so easy to use, and so I just say that just because it's a simple way to get all 5 points. I mean, it's a 1-point deduction going forward when they get poorly written stuff. So I'm interested in what you're saying, but of course I want you all to write professional and all of that. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, plagiarism, not in this class. But another one, I mean, it's basically the Wikipedia entry for the city they're from. And I try to emphasize that there's really no point to plagiarize. The stuff that I'm asking you is to tell me how you feel. Tell me what your thoughts are. Tell me your own story. Tell me your own views. And so that stuff, it really shouldn't be plagiarized. And I designed it on purpose. And it's so easy to identify. I mean, basically, if I would have copied and pasted, it probably had the hyperlink still in there. And you can go find it. You can see all the discussions. It's pretty obvious the one that's plagiarized. So just don't do it. So it's something that I do take serious because the penalties at the higher level are very severe. I don't want that to happen to you. All right, so that's the discussion. Now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of catch us an update on course. So on course is where you're going to go. I sent an email to you today earlier, and I also included in that email a 3-minute video that kind of explains the gradebook procedures. So your chapter quiz scores and all of that. And so what I do is I do not keep all of the grades in the textbook. I keep it in on course. So if you go to the gradebook, you'll already see all of them in there. So chapter 1 quiz, I have added those for those who have taken. That should be in there. So I will every week, sometime the week after a chapter closes, I will then post your chapter 1 quiz score in there. So everything's now in there. And so also use this as another kind of, when's that due? When's that, it's another place to find that there in the gradebook. So the gradebook has been populated and will continue to be populated. Further, there's the free point activities. The free point activities, I just include those at the bottom. So these are stuff that as you've probably done a couple of them, over the course of the semester, I'll add them. You'll find those at the bottom. So as I add them, let's say I add the first 4, you'll see the grade is out of 4 points. And so as I add more, then it becomes out of 6 points and so forth. So that's where to find the free point activities. But this is all explained in a video that I sent to you today. Other things, we've got the Wednesday discussions, and so if you click on that, you have all the Wednesday discussions, and so these are each of these times, like today. So as you maybe have noticed, I'm recording this right now. So what I'll do is sometime tomorrow, maybe Friday, depends on how much fun I have tonight, I'll then take that from the camera, put it onto YouTube, and then post a link right there. And why is that useful? If you missed something, if you were here, you didn't understand it, you want me to go over it again, there's where you can watch that. Further, we get to the times in which the session, the Wednesday before an exam, I'll be doing the exam review. And so the exam 1 review will then be, September 23rd, i.e. the next time we meet. And so that's when I will record it. And so that's, obviously something that you can also use as a study guide. But also, if you missed the exam review, a great place to get caught up. So that's the Wednesday discussions and just kind of a heads up there. I've also added the Exam 1 review guide. So the Exam 1 review guide, like the other 2 review guides, will pop up over here on the left-hand side. So Exam 1, which is September 28th at noon, on September 28th, what will happen is, of this list, there's 10 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 questions. Of this list, I'll randomly pick 5. So on the exam date, on September 28th at noon, I'll have the exam, I'll hand it out to you, and what you'll see is at the top, a question, and then you have the entire page. You can have as much page as you want to then rattle off a response that answers each of those questions. Think of this as very much a general question. These are softball questions, very describe, kind of big picture things. So what I'm really emphasizing is think of this as kind of like a softball that I'm throwing to you. Softball is this game in which it's this big ball that you hit. And I want you just to knock the out of it. So give me as much stuff as you can. Give me examples. Give me other ways to explain something, other definitions. Include your own stuff. Include your own thoughts. Maybe you have something from Saudi Arabia that you can apply to it. Go for it. So all of these are essentially questions in which you already have them. So I suggest as you go through the chapters, kind of go ahead and start writing out the questions as you come, or start writing out your responses as you come to each of these topics. This is also, when we think about that exam review session that will be on that Wednesday, will be you guys saying, hey, could you explain this a little bit more? So that's also a good opportunity for that. I also, it's something that I really don't see as much until exam 2 or exam 3, but students will get together and they'll go ahead and write out a response. They'll come visit me during my office hours or arrange a meeting or something and say, hey, take a look at this. What would you give this? Would you give this full credit? What could I add to this? And sometimes I might tell you, hey, relax, that's too much. Your arm's going to get tired if you actually do that on exam day. So I'll be straight with you and say, hey, this is exactly the score you would get for that response. Of course, on the exam day, you have a blank sheet of paper, no help, and then have to rattle off a response. So exam 1 questions, big picture questions beyond the examples, specific examples of diffusion types. Anything I can explain about these? So 10 questions. I will say exam 2, I think there's 13 possible. In exam 3, there's 15 possible, but we'll get to all that later. Cool. All right, so your question was some more examples of contagious, hierarchical, relocation, and network diffusion. Cool. So contagious diffusion. Contagious diffusion, this is the one that we kind of, just think about a fountain. Do we have fountains on campus? We got that pyramid, but that's the opposite of a fountain. So just think you got a big old fountain. You have a coin, you flip a coin into the fountain, and then it hits the water and ripples out in all directions. That's contagious diffusion. And so contagious diffusion, the obvious one is just the flu. We spread the flu from each other. That's infectious disease. So contagious diffusion, the flu is a good example of that. So we'll talk about the flu in terms of, do we call it an epidemic? Do we call it a pandemic? Is it an endemic disease? We'll talk about that later in a different chapter. But as far as diffusion, the flu, contagious diffusion, spread from person to person. Hierarchical diffusion. Hierarchical diffusion, that's going to be more popular culture kind of stuff. And so I'll come back and I'll explain more of that in the future chapter. But hierarchical diffusion, when we think about trends, when we think about popular culture, Edinburgh, Indiana? No. Oh, yeah. Yeah?
I grew up in Columbus, but I've lived all around
Right.
that area.
But is that where fashion emanates from? No. That is not. Fashion emanates from whatever I saw the VMAs on last week. That's where ideas and trends originate. That's Los Angeles, Chicago, Paris. When we think about fashion, it's not going to be in Martinsville. And so when we think about the diffusion of trends, the diffusion of ideas, so popular culture often follows hierarchical diffusion. Big cities are where these trends start out. Then over time, maybe the suburbs around those big cities might start to pick up a trend. And then eventually rural areas. So in the chapter, in the text, I use an example. I think of white sunglasses. And so I use an example of how white sunglasses were the cool thing back in like 2007. Celebrities wearing them. Then over time, 2008, 2009, kind of Indianapolis people, Fountain Square kids probably wearing them. Then over time, kind of more suburbanite. And then more rural areas, and so eventually these girls in the middle of nowhere, rural Indiana, are wearing these white sunglasses and think they're the coolest thing in the world when that trend started 5 years ago in a big city. Another example of a hierarchical diffusion, but actually reverse hierarchical diffusion. So hierarchical diffusion, we think of going big cities to smaller cities to rural areas, a trend. Reverse, of course, is the opposite. So what kind of examples of trends that start off in rural America? What are some examples of rural American trends that then over time become nationwide trends? Not much, is there really? I mean, that's kind of the whole idea of pop culture, but any examples maybe? Maybe from the textbook. Walmart. Walmart started out in rural areas, rural middle of nowhere Arkansas. Where is it diffused now? It's gone to other rural places. Then it's gone to suburban areas. Now it's gone to cities. Now Walmart's pretty much everywhere. It's an international company. And so here you see a rural thing, Walmart, which over time became much popular and has actually kind of gone the opposite direction. But hierarchical diffusion, so we'll see some other examples of that. That's going to come back in the urban geography chapter. So we'll look at cities, and of course there's a hierarchical pattern. So big cities, New York, obviously have more power, more clout, more stuff going on than Avon. But Avon's got more stuff going on than Danville, since this is a class that's got like half the people from Hendricks County. No, that's the other one. But yeah, so we got these different, different tiered cities, and we'll apply all kinds of concepts to that. Relocation diffusion. So relocation diffusion, the idea here is as people, this relocation diffusion, this one, another key word to include in that, if you're taking notes, migration. So migration patterns often follow this whole relocation idea. But some examples of this, and so you might have an actual group. So we have this forced and mass migration that I'll talk about later, called the African slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade, in which African slaves were forcibly removed from Africa and brought en masse to the United States, to Central America, and to South America. And so over time, this large group relocated to a new area. And so what happens is when people migrate, oftentimes, what do they bring with them? Their culture. Who they are, what they eat, what they like, what they believe, and all of that. And so over time, this large group migrated to the United States, obviously forcibly. But then after the Civil War, after slavery ended, they then all, large mass migration of African Americans moved to the North. Why? Well, I mean, I don't know, the whole South versus North thing, but there's one reason right there, but also because the North had jobs. So the North was alive and kicking. So what ended up happening was a large amount of African Americans relocated, migrated, and brought with them their traditions, in the case of music. So New Orleans used to be the thriving area of African American music, still is to a certain extent. Mobile, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi. However, over time, as a large group migrated out of that particular area, you start seeing St. Louis. What's the hockey team called? St. Louis hockey team's name is? The Blues. Chicago Blues, the Blues Brothers. Chicago has a really thriving blues scene. Indianapolis, Indiana Avenue used to have a huge jazz and blues scene. And so all this was from African Americans migrating. This is called the Great Migration. And of course, the big city to really see the benefit of that is Detroit, Motown. So essentially, that is an example of relocation diffusion. So a large group in mass, originally forced, but then voluntarily relocated, and as they migrated, they brought with them their culture. And so the moral of the story is we saw the diffusion of African American music from the south to the north. All right, other examples of relocation you'll come across in the migration chapter, chapter 6. All right, in network diffusion, kind of already gave some examples there, but let's say all of a sudden, I don't know, some bad example where we're all of a sudden the only people in this sort of classroom are the people that are sick, have some weird disease. Obviously, there's some type of situation where just because we're in this room, we're going to have that disease. But the people over right now in lecture hall who aren't interacting with us, they're not along, they're not in our network. So then that would be an example of network diffusion. So we're not receiving that diffusion, or they're not receiving it. But network, just think about the STDs and the pornographers. Other examples, gosh, I forgot about my beloved Scott County, Indiana, where now everyone's got HIV. So I don't know if you heard about this. Rural Indiana people, you're hearing about all these drug deaths, all these needle exchanges. So what's going on is the network of friends, your social network, is playing a critical role in sharing needles and doing all that stuff. This is causing an HIV problem. Have we heard about this? Rural Indiana has an HIV problem. National news is covering it. It's because of network diffusion, people sharing those needles. And so essentially, if, right now I'm not sharing that needle, and so thus I'm not picking up HIV. Anyway, yeah, you use your own self in those examples. Did that help?
Yeah.
Cool, great. Cool. All right. Any questions about any of these? So the chapter 1, the other one, formal, functional, vernacular. Can you go over that one? Yeah, sure. So formal. So formal is going to be, think of that as there's something that kind of, one or just a few things that makes that area distinct and makes it different from a different region. So what are you, are you interested in sports? No? Music?
No.
What are you interested in?
I don't know. I'm like, I don't know.
You're A's fan, is that?
A's? No, I mean, I watch sports and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I never know how, like, lame you are.
Where are you from?
Westfield.
Westfield.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can think of, let's think of Indianapolis. So we'll think of Indianapolis, metropolitan Indianapolis. And so it has different formal regions within it. And so different areas in which they have things to distinguish them and make them different than other areas. And so I would say suburban Hamilton County, Westfield, Carmel. What makes that place, that makes that region of the city different than downtown, what makes it different than Irvington, what makes it even different than Greenwood, is first off, high income, big huge old homes, big huge old neighborhoods, big huge old lots. Makes it kind of a distinguishing characteristic. And so these are some things that distinguish it from other areas. But another thing that most people don't realize, the best bike network anywhere in metropolitan Indianapolis is actually in Hamilton County, is in Westfield and Carmel. Extremely good bike network. So while we have these different bike networks that are all starting to develop in this area, that area has a very, that's a lot of it's wealth. I mean, it's people who can afford those amenities. So we think of the region of the city. What makes that area distinct and different from another area? We think of it as the formal region. Other examples of formal regions, you've got the Cotton Belt of the United States, which guess what? What do they grow there primarily? Cotton. Oh, these guys are great. So Tobacco Belt, Bible Belt. We've got the Pacific Northwest is a region. Pacific Northwest. People who have a different stance in marijuana than people in the Midwest or in the South. So these are examples of, there's limitless examples. But the idea is there's something, there's one or a few things distinguish that region from the one next to it, or from another one. Next up would be functional region. Functional region, think of this as like television markets. Think of these as kind of radio markets. I don't know, did we listen to the radio anymore? I don't know. Probably not. But just think of it, we all watch television. Well, no, actually we probably don't now. We're all watching Netflix. So just think of a network, or sorry, what am I talking about? Let's think of a functional region. Let's think about Indianapolis Airport. So Indianapolis Airport is obviously the core, the center of a huge regional area. And so that airport serves all the people in that particular area who want to fly out of here. Other examples, like I said, the television networks. WRTV, Wish TV, my old personal favorite, WTHR, and my former crush, Angela Buckman. All those people, where are those television channels broadcasted from? Where's the headquarters? Not in Anderson, not in Carmel, not in Columbus, not in Danville, downtown, Indianapolis, the center of this functional region. So we think about a functional region, think about a metropolitan area, in which you have that core city that dominates, then all those surrounding areas, obviously frequent. You might have jobs, people living, and so it's a functional region which serves a particular purpose. So market areas, television market areas is a great example. So that's also covered in the text, I believe. Then the other one, vernacular region. This is the one that's a little bit, probably the hardest to define. It's whatever you kind of visualize and think of an area. So what is the South? What is the American South? Your view might be different than another person's view. If you've never been to Louisiana, you might never include Louisiana. So you might have a particular area of your city or nearby where you would never go there. You might have a name for that area. Troubletown, I don't know, Dodge City. In case of where I grew up in Greenwood, we had this area south of it called Podunk. There's no Podunk on the map. There's nowhere where it says, okay, welcome to Podunk. But in our minds, Podunk was a place. It's kind of this area, it's kind of sketchy area just south of where I lived. And so vernacular region is perception. And so it's kind of our perception. It's a little bit hard to define, which maybe lends itself not as useful as a written response question. Hint, hint. All right. Now let's talk about the assignments. So right now, this week, we've got assignment 1. And assignment 1, I wish I could zoom in. Can I zoom in? What's going on here? That would help. Top row, or close to top row, can we let me know if you can see this now? You see that? Cool. All right. So this is 2 parts. This assignment 1 is 2 parts. Part 1 will involve you actually making a map, and actually, if you haven't done this yet, it'll be easier than what it might seem at first. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Google. So follow these links. Anybody's done this yet? Anybody started on this yet? Great. Oh, you have?
I just started reading.
Oh, cool. Go. No, actually, anybody's, because this is now available. No one started on it? So great. I can go through it and it'll be useful for everyone. All right. So what you'll do is you'll just go to Google. If you have a Google account, go ahead and use it. If you don't, it's really simple and easy. It's free to sign up. So what you'll do is you'll go click on these various links and you'll create your own map. And I'll go and see if I can, how quickly I can make one myself to kind of just show you how this works. All right, go to Google Maps, click on the link. I'm already signed in. So once you sign in, you have to sign in. Then you follow these instructions, which I do include in a video. So my maps, create your own maps. Create, cranking this sucker out. What do we want to make a map of? What do we want to do?
Make a map of Indiana. Right?
That's boring. Making a map of Indiana?
Like, I don't know. You can do anything. Cuba.
Well, okay, let me step back. This Google map, the map has to have a theme. So you're going to learn about thematic maps, dot maps in Chapter 2. So this is application of stuff, application of knowledge. So what you're going to do is you're going to place dots on a map, place marks. So you have to have 10 dots on the map. So some examples might be your 10 favorite restaurants in Indianapolis. That's a theme. It might be the 10 best schools for football. That's a theme. So if you can apply this to yourself, even better. You don't get any extra points. But let's say you're a veterinarian, top 10 veterinarian schools. That might be useful to you. So all it has to do is be a theme. So anybody want to help us? A theme map. Come on, come on.
Cities with the highest crime rate.
Cool. So what you would do is you would go find that, you Google it, cities with the highest crime rate, you'd find the top 10, and then you would just place a dot where each of those cities are. We're going to go to state, or let's go use the United States. And so this is completely me making this information up, so I do not know, I'm not a crime data expert. Alright, so what I do is I then go to this add marker tool. Hopefully this is being picked up by the video. So I click the add marker tool. I'm a Bears fan. So that means I hate Green Bay. So Green Bay has the worst crime. And so, worst crime, number 1. So I gave the place marker, gave the name. So I can add a description if I want. I can add a photo if I want. All of this, have fun with it. If you really want to get into it, go nuts, make something personalized, go for it. If you don't, that's fine as well. You all get the same points. It just has to have a theme. So what was the theme again? Crime. Worst crime cities, and then I got a theme, and then from there just 9 more dots. So you then just go around and you got yourself a theme. You'll follow the instructions which are included in this video. You'll share it, and all of that is explained in the video. But that's assignment 1, part 1. So that, like I said, have fun with it. I've got several examples. On, as it says, my Twitter page. Now this is not me attempting to get followers. I could care less about that stuff. I'm not a millennial. So if you want to go there, go to my page, or just do a thing, one of these, what they call searches, hashtag G110 online, and you'll see posts that I've made specifically for G110 online, and then if you go scroll through, you'll see some examples of maps that students have created. So what I'll do is the best ones are the ones I like the most. I show favoritism. I'll then post to my Twitter, and then so you can see old ones. So NFL stadiums within 10 hours driving distance from Brownsburg. So that was the theme. This theme, top 10 Indiana State parks. Then another person, something about Pawnee. I don't know, from Parks and Rec. Places mentioned in Big Bang Theory, so it doesn't have to be Indianapolis. It can be anywhere. And so that's what I said, have fun with it. And so hashtag G110 online. If, this, like I said, these are for the people that are geeked out about this stuff. It's about, as the data shows, about 20% of you. So that means 80% of you could care less, which is fine. But this is a place to go for more stuff. More stuff, I try to keep it current. So when the state produces a bad map, I let them know. And I hashtag G110 online, because that's the topic of this week's chapter. Cool. So questions about part 1. Now we have part 2. So once again, the key thing for this class, we're application of this stuff to you personally. That's why I try to really make this somewhat relate to you in some way. So for this one, as you make that map, kind of start thinking about, well, how can in my own career, or maybe in my own major, my degree program, how can I actually benefit from making these maps? It's simple, it's quick and easy to do. For example, the newspaper, a lot of the newspaper in the local news channels, they're making all these maps. They're using Google Maps to make them. The same stuff that you're doing. So people are using these to explain information. Well, how can you benefit from it? And so for some of you, this might be hard. The computer science major, yeah, it's a little challenging to connect making maps to a computer science degree. But for some reason, they always come up with good examples, as far-flung as they are. So with this, make sure you're answering the question, and make sure you're not just saying, these will help me as far as understanding where to go. No, make it specific to yourself. How can this benefit your career? And if you're not thinking about your career, then you're already behind the game. You should have been already thinking about that. And you can change your mind. You're going to have about 14 to 15 jobs on average. It's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It says you guys, college students today, in their lifetime will have 14 different jobs. To me, that sounds like hell, but that's probably a lot of promotions and making some more. But that just kind of shows you're always going to be on the move, going to go from one place to another as jobs get created and then fold. And so that will be then completed in the actual text box. So that's assignment 1, parts 1 and 2. Make sure to do them both. About 10% forget to do the second part. All right. Now I'm going to go to assignment 2. Now assignment 2 is in chapter 4. So it's a quick 411. That's chapter 4, so it's still a ways away. However, I won't see you again on a Wednesday. Actually, where I'm recording and all in this. Of course, I'll be at my office hours, but I won't be around. So I just want to quickly introduce this and make sure we're all caught up to speed and nothing's going to be surprising for this. So this one here. Assignment 2, the title of it is going to be Where Your Stuff Comes From. So this applies to stuff that we're going to be talking about in Chapter 4, but we'll come back and talk about a couple different times throughout the semester. So essentially you create a data set that you get to come back and use and analyze and all of that. So what will happen is you'll download or just open up this document here. This is going to be the table that you're also going to fill out, but then upload to the site. And so this will look like it's, oh my gosh, this is going to take me forever. Once again, you'll be surprised. And so what you're going to do is you'll see that everything, every single one of you right now is wearing a shirt, and somewhere on it says where it's made. So you just essentially categorize the stuff. You'll find all of it, somewhere on it says where it's made. It's got to. And so you just fill out this table, fill it out, complete it to its full, to the end, every single box. And then from that, you'll then analyze what country did most of your stuff come from. Trust me, it's either going to be China or United States. International students do have a little bit more, obviously it could be different, but we all know China, China, China. If you don't know, goddamn Donald Trump's been telling you about it. Anyway, so from there, you then categorize which region. China is in East Asia. China is in East Asia, not South Asia or Southeast Asia. China is in East Asia. And then from there, you then fill out some observations. So to help with all of this, I've also included different stuff. So here's a list of possible items. So what are clothing, what are different electronics, different examples of accessories. I have some examples here. So I add some more information, and then also some rough observations of patterns. And so when that very last table, the one that students don't complete, the one that students don't do anything with, that's where most of the points are taken away, which is why I'm taking the time to explain that now, is this that last table. Where do we go back to it? This last table down here. So it's just making observations. So all of this we'll come back to. We'll build off of it. I'll explain the patterns in the economic geography. When I explain the global economy, well, this is why all your stuff's made in here. This is why. This is why. It all makes sense in a different chapter. But nonetheless, this also speaks to your culture, which is the chapter 4 topic. So that's assignment 2. Questions there? Cool. So I got nothing else. So if you have individual questions, come on down. Cool. I sent them a message, and they've yet to respond. So yeah,
No problem.
yeah, they're an hour behind us. So
Yeah.
but if it's not, if you don't get it by tomorrow, then let me know so I can email them again.